Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno, here with my co-host, Harris Faulkner, and also joining us today, Cheryl Casone, Amy Freeze, and for the first time, Jeremy Hunt. Welcome. We're so grateful to have you here today.
Great to be here. I'm excited.
Good. We are too. All right. We begin with growing backlash the president is facing over his handling of the nation's secrets after classified documents were found at his former office and in his Delaware home and garage, where he keeps his Corvette. The discoveries are raising questions on why the president's lawyers conducted the search instead of the feds, and why there are no visitor logs at the president's home, where he has reportedly spent 167 days of his presidency. The White House and Secret Service are both saying there are no such records. Today's New York Post calling this playing Biden-seek. And now the president may be losing even the mainstream media. Watch.
It's very, very big. Not legally, but politically, it's a very, very big deal. I don't think sitting there hunkering down now, they're just acting like it's not out there is a good strategy. They're just going to get creamed doing it.
If you're explaining, you're losing. Yes. They're trying to explain the difference. And we know there is a difference. But as we say to most folks at home, this guy did wrong, this guy did wrong.
What happened here with these classified documents really erodes and undermines not just the momentum, but the brand that the Democrats had been building of being not only the competent party, but the decent, honest party.
By stumbling and bumbling around, by not getting their timeline right, amateur hour is over.
The answers coming out of the White House are doing little to convince House Republicans, who demand to know who had access to the president's home over all those years. Congressman Jim Jordan told Harris last hour there are a lot of unanswered questions.
I do not know why they initially discovered this, why they went looking in the first place, why was it his lawyers packing boxes? I think there are all kinds of questions. I don't know that we know the answer to that, but I think the American people are entitled to the answers to those questions, particularly in light of what happened 91 days before the midterm election when President Trump's home was raided. That was information the country had all kinds of access to, but not this. So I think there's all those questions, and Mr. Comer and our committee and others, the Intel Committee, are all trying to get answers for the American people.
Jeremy, again, welcome to you. You say this is like day one of basic training for intelligence operations. Tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think some people at home are thinking, is this normal? Do these kind of things just happen? No, they do not. This is not normal. As a former military intelligence officer, in our basic training, we have online courses, and there's these scenarios where you have a coworker who walks up with this classified folder, and he says, oh, what should I do with these documents? And I can't make this up. And the user is presented with a few options. One is, return the documents to the classified area, or another one is, just take them home with you. And I've always thought, who would actually be silly enough to select just take them home with me option? Apparently Joe Biden.
Yeah, you have your answer now.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the commander-in-chief, unfortunately. Yeah. What do you foresee of consequences, if any?
Unfortunately, in these kind of scenarios, when you have someone who is, now the president of the United States, I don't see a lot of consequences. All we can do, especially those of us in media, is just constantly ask those tough questions and hold power to account. I can tell you that for a lot of soldiers, there was a sailor recently, this is in 2016, who just took pictures of a classified area of the submarine and just sent to his family. Yep. He was put in prison for over a year. I mean, so those are the stakes. And so I hope we treat this seriously, because it is a real problem.
That's right. And Harris, you always do such a good job of eliciting all of these questions, including last hour with Jim Jordan and the like. And it's sort of, the questions here are, in addition to how disorganized is everything and what exactly was there in that junk pile, right? Or there nuclear codes in addition to simple passcodes. What do the American people here? What was actually threatened and what still remains to be threatened, and why was there such a double standard? Because as Jeremy talks about potential for consequences and accountability, you can't help but wonder and compare the Mar-a-Lago situation to this. There was an FBI raid. There was a constant skewering in the media. Here, why are attorneys allowed to do what the government should be doing? Why are our tax dollars being spent so differently and the stewardship of our trust being heralded so differently?
Because the president chose to shield himself rather than be honest about what the threats were to national security from the very beginning, November 2nd. And Chairman of Judiciary Jim Jordan asked a very good origin question. And we know Democrats, maybe when it comes to COVID and other things, don't want to know the origins. We've got to break that habit. We need to know how things start. So who made the call before November 2nd that private attorneys were going to be there to collect the president's papers? Who made the call that it might take more than 24 hours to let federal authorities at the National Archives or whomever know that those papers had been gathered? It was either the 3rd or the 4th of November. You hear back and forth. Well, it wasn't the 2nd when they were found. So who made the call then later in December 20th when they found documents at a second location, the president's home? He says, oh, right next to the Corvette. Well, thank you. We've got pictures of the inside of the garage. We're not going to guess whether or not that big pile of papers in the back is that. We hope and pray it isn't. But among those first papers at the UPenn Biden Center were some that had markings of top secret. Among those papers were foreign intelligence materials having to do with Iran, China, Ukraine, right? Which two of those are enemies? Only the wrong answers count. Like when you tell me that you were a military intelligence officer, the reason that you would get in more trouble than the president is because you cannot declassify a document that you get your hands on. Well, news. Neither could a vice president and Biden. And if I'm Obama today, I'm wondering if I wasn't complicit and already rolled in and didn't know that he took these things, possibly to write a book, who knows. But is former President Obama going to be asked about these things? Sorry, Madonna. I seriously want to know because he could have declassified them. He's in this too. And his name deserves to be mentioned, too, because I'm sure he's got an opinion.
Well, and Cheryl, that was such a good point that Harris brought up. So first of all, it begs the question on that timeline she articulated, you know, his personal attorneys, Biden's, had access to all of these documents from, at a minimum, November 2nd through January 11th. That's a whole lot of time to touch a lot of things. And that's worrisome, especially when, as Jeremy brings up, potential for accountability. And this administration says, well, we cooperated immediately. What did that cooperation look like behind closed doors? Harris as well brought up the transition between Obama and Biden moving out, which the administration has defended as chaotic. That's not a defense to the gross mishandling of classified documents. And we see a picture actually of, I believe, was it one of the first days? There we go. So this is before Secret Service moved in. This is what his Delaware residence looked like in April of 2019. There's no security. There's no Secret Service. It is clearly an unsecure location, as the Attorney General has confirmed, but that just goes to show the openness of what you say is the most troublesome, which is that it's his personal residence.
His personal residence, no visitor logs, that's issue number one. But the bigger problem I have with all of this is that Hunter Biden was living in that house. I don't know if he was working on the Corvette or Lord knows what he was doing in the house, but he was there. So you've got classified documents. You know, you've got Hunter Biden in the home, and we know he's been accused of obviously, you know, business dealings with China, business dealings in the Ukraine, you know, using his father's name to further himself. Now, troubled at the time, clean and sober now. Let's give him that. But so that bothers me first and foremost. Also, just the hypocrisy in all of this. And Jim Jordan, I think, mentioned that to you in the last hour. And Kevin McCarthy has mentioned this. The hypocrisy that you went full throttle after Donald Trump for the same thing, but now, in particular with the mainstream media, they're backing off and they're kind of giving Biden, if you will, a little bit of a pass. I think that's unfair. And so I think that whether Karine Jean-Pierre wants to sit there and defend the White House, which she's been doing, I think she's been gaslighting reporters, not Peter Doocy, but she's been gaslighting other reporters. I think all of that needs to be kind of examined, and it's unfortunate.
We are going to see some media, though, stepping up. Anybody who's a real journalist here is going to take a look at it and say there are questions that need to be answered. So if you are having to start explain, even just a little bit, that means that you're under the hot seat. And I think we are going to see some journalists who have given so much liberal space to the president, they're going to now put him under the gun and say, explain some of these things. I do not believe that this can go completely unanswered for even the president on this scenario, because there are just so many questions that are out there and so many facts that are open that have to be addressed.
I think it was Don Lemon that said, you're losing if you're explaining. So if you've lost Don Lemon, I think it's a big indicator you've lost a lot of people.
Not a good sign.
It's been a few weeks that the president was starting his victory lap after the midterm elections.
Exactly.
You know, he started off with some comments today. I understand he was with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Questions being shouted at him. He ignored them all. I don't think that the posture of ignoring is going to work.
Won't hold up in this scenario.
And as we talk about the mainstream media potentially getting on board now, perhaps it's because they have realized that in this scenario, every American, regardless of party, is who the loser is here when national security is at stake. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.